Welcome back to Wartime Cafe. We have a special episode coming up right now with a special guest, given the circumstances that we are living, the assassination of Sayyed Nasrallah, and the possibility of a full-out war here in Lebanon. We were lucky enough to have with us Dr. Mohammad Marandi from the University of Tehran, who has just arrived in Beirut before and around the assassination. He will be giving us his ideas about what is happening right now and what we should be expecting. Thank you very much for being with us, Dr. Marandi. Our condolences to all people of the axis of resistance, and as well as free peoples in the world that are seeking sovereignty and liberation from the empire. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my honor to be here in Beirut and in Lebanon in these decisive days. I should be wearing black, but I didn't bring a black shirt with me to Beirut. But I am in mourning like you and like almost everyone that I've seen in Beirut during the last few days. But again, as I was saying earlier, that we have to be strong and we have to pursue the course that Sayyid Hassan wanted us to pursue. That is the best way to honor his memory, to continue down the path and never show weakness and not allow our grief to slow us down even for a moment.
You know, usually on Wartime Cafe, we like to get a lot of the personal of our guests in the beginning. But given the circumstances, I don't think there's anything left personal in our meeting here today. So, you know, just quickly for people to understand your background. Obviously, a lot of people have seen you in many platforms around the world speaking on behalf of the Axis of Resistance and on behalf of Iran. But you were a survivor of chemical warfare conducted by the regime of Saddam Hussein at the behest of the West. And today we are living similar conditions here in Lebanon, in the region, genocide and use of forbidden weapons directed at civilians and the resistance here. And it's all done by weapons from the West and directives from the West. Let's jump into it immediately. Sayyid Nasrallah was martyred. They used 65 5-ton bombs to level a whole street and get to the bunkers under the buildings. Is this a war crime?
Yes, without a doubt. Actually, I was about maybe 1,000 meters away from where it happened. And I was sitting with a friend and we were discussing how things are going to get much worse before they get better. When suddenly it was the sound of explosion after explosion, right after another happened, and we thought it was right beside the building. And when I went outside, I quickly recognized where it was. It was a neighborhood that I've walked through many times because when I lived in Beirut for a year on my sabbatical, I lived in not far from there. And these are just residential towers. They were residential towers full of ordinary people. People from all walks of life. Not particularly wealthy, probably just ordinary people. And they've all been wiped away. Actually, I think a a friend of my son, who was his classmate that year when he was in Beirut, and his wife and his child, they were murdered in the attack because my son hasn't been able to communicate with him since this happened. They were classmates, and he actually was in Iran during my son's wedding, so he was at our wedding. We don't know though, but the point is that they just massacred hundreds of people. In the West, the Western media, they like to focus on the fact that they hit Sayyed Hassan because they want to distract attention away from the fact that they massacred hundreds of people. That is the way they do things. Whether Sayyed Hassan is targeted or not, and they just bomb another place, which they've done in the following hours at night. They bombed many different places in Dahieh and Beirut, and they claim that they are they're legitimate targets, but they lie most of the times. They just need to give an excuse so that the Western media can repeat it for them, because that's what the Western media will do. They'll try their best to frame the narrative in a way which legitimizes Israeli atrocities. That's what they always do, always. Sometimes they may nag, sometimes they may expose a thing or two, but the general narrative is always to legitimize their crimes and atrocities, and as we saw in Gaza, the Holocaust. If you recall, the first hospital strike in Gaza, which was a massacre, the West tried to, they said that these were faulty Islamic Jihad rockets. And the West, they repeated those claims. Why? Because they wanted to blame the victim and help the Israelis carry out these atrocities. They are partners in these crimes. Or the lies about October the 7th, about the rape and the beheadings, which turned out to be all of them turned out to be lies. We knew that from almost the beginning, but they continued with it for weeks and months. Why? Because they wanted to justify the genocide. So Western media, mainstream Western media, legacy media, and the media close to the establishment, they are as guilty as the Zionists. And this is something that I experienced from childhood. You alluded to my youth. I was a volunteer in the war when Saddam Hussein invaded Iran, and he was using chemical weapons extensively, not only against us, but against Iranian civilians and Iraqi civilians. I went to Halabja soon after the atrocity. 6,500 people may have been killed. And in that chemical strike, there was no condemnation from the West. The West gave those weapons to Saddam. He was their man. And then when they decided to turn against Saddam, and that's a long story, and the U.S. ambassador's meeting with Saddam Hussein before the invasion of Kuwait.
Ambassador Gillespie.
Absolutely. I don't want to get into that. But when they turned against Saddam, what did they do? They attacked him in the name of ridding Iraq of chemical weapons, the chemical weapons that they gave to him. So the West is the root of the problem. The evil comes from the West. The good thing is that many people in the West are waking up to this, despite the fact that this empire, this media empire, has been so successful over the past decades in containing discontent and keeping people distracted and hiding reality. But a lot of people are waking up. And that's why we see how Facebook and Instagram and Twitter in a different way, and all of these social media outlets, why they're now shutting down resistance, because they see it's getting out of control. TikTok, whatever. The weaker the empire becomes, the more dictatorial it becomes, and the more limited freedom of speech becomes. And the only reason why they tolerated some discontent in the past was because they were in a position of strength. So they could sort of allow that for that. It benefited them in a certain way too, to pretend that they were open and liberal capitalism or liberal democracy accepts freedom of speech, which we now know has always been a lie. Of course, for many of us, that was the case from the beginning, because they shut us down. Like they shut my Facebook account and Instagram account many years ago. Actually, I was once invited by the BBC, of all institutions, to come to AUB for a debate. The American University of Beirut, to the north of where we are now, in the same city where we are. And AUB then banned me from entering the campus because the US State Department warned AUB that if I'm allowed on campus, they would be fined. That's how intolerant, and the AUB would not even state why I'm banned. I only found out maybe a couple of years later from someone who heard the truth from someone at AUB. But the point I'm making is that the West is completely intolerant to freedom of speech. The West is an equal partner in this genocide and Holocaust and these genocidal attacks that we're now seeing in Lebanon. And this is something that our friends in the West have to recognize, that it's not just the Zionist regime. It's not just Netanyahu. It's not even his coalition partners. It's not even the opposition to Netanyahu, which is just as equally racist and fanatical in carrying out genocide. But it is this whole apparatus, it is this deep base, it is the Western political establishment that is causing such misery.
As we're speaking, the Zionists have just attacked the southern suburb of Beirut, a few kilometers away from us here. And I'm not sure if our viewers can hear it, but there's a non-stop drone flying over us, buzzing annoyingly. So to look at the assassination, the martyrdom of Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah, was this expected in your mind?
I can't say it was expected, but it wasn't surprising. I've said before that Hezbollah is up against, and the resistance, and we are all the resistance. You're the resistance, I'm the resistance, we're all the resistance. It's Hezbollah, the axis of resistance, and the supporters of resistance, which can extend from North America to China to South Africa and the southern tip of South America. We have a global alliance that is opposed to this genocidal regime and colonialism. But I think that it didn't surprise me. I wasn't expecting it at this time, but Beirut has always been the weakest link for the resistance in Lebanon, because Beirut has always been heavily infiltrated by the West. During the period of the PLO, before Hezbollah was created, this city was full of spies. Western embassies and Western journalists and others were working together with the Israeli regime. And so were a lot of these fascistic militias and the monsters, for example, who carried out Sabra and
the Phalange.
Yeah, which is, the camp is maybe a kilometer or two away from here, killing almost 4,000 people in 36 hours, slaughtering everyone. So Beirut has always been deeply infiltrated. And now it is the same. Western embassies, Western-funded NGOs, Western journalists. I'm not saying everyone, but this apparatus is full of...
To remind our viewers, just a month ago or such, there was a group of Dutch
That's right.
soldiers masquerading and entering the Dahi, scanning things, and they were caught. They claimed that they're there to plan an evacuation for their citizens from the Lahi. And as we see right now, all the Western governments said they will not evacuate any of their citizens in Lebanon. So definitely there is hundreds of spies on the ground, as well as what do you think is the role of artificial intelligence that is capturing all communication in the country, the sound, the voice print, the faces of people that are moving?
Right now, there are American and European and British planes and drones flying alongside the coast of Lebanon. They gather intelligence for the Israelis, just like they've been doing in Gaza. The Five Eyes, which includes the nice people in New Zealand, they are gathering intelligence for the Israelis. They use artificial intelligence. These countries, it's not Israel that's doing this. Israel is a puny, weak regime that wouldn't survive more than a few weeks if Western assistance stopped. If it suddenly dried up, it would collapse. If this assistance was not there, it would collapse. They are feeding it with intelligence, with weapons, with ammunition, with political support, propaganda, and financial support of all sorts, of all kinds, so that to prop it up. All these bunker busters that are being used in Dahia, just like the attack that was carried out a few moments ago near where we are, these are all bunker busters in the middle of cities. And even the Western journalists here in Beirut, they pretend that they try to spin the narrative in a way to distract attention away from the fact that these are bunker busters being targeted at people's apartments. They say, oh, they're, Hezbollah, they say Hezbollah strongholds. Wherever you see the word, the term Hezbollah stronghold, you can be sure that that's propaganda. It's like saying Tel Aviv is a Zionist stronghold. Or they say that Hezbollah is embedded in the population. Well, the so-called IDF is embedded in the population in Tel Aviv or wherever else they have bases, or Mossad or the other intelligence agencies that they have. So, or they say Hezbollah sites, or they always try to frame it in a way so that we don't focus on the fact that they're carrying out genocidal attacks and violating international law in the worst way and behaving utterly immoral. And these journalists are all partners in crime. They're all partners in crime.
Well, when the time comes after liberation, we will definitely hold Nuremberg trials for all these journalists and CEOs of media outlets, and we'll bring them to justice. In the meanwhile, obviously, these journalists and the governments that are behind them seem to be intent on going the furthest point into defending their beachfront colony, beachhead colony that's the cancer in this area, and are supporting this genocide and will do anything to protect the Zionist colony to continue this genocide. Hezbollah and the Axis of Resistance had a huge loss with the martyrdom of Sayyed Nasrallah and many of the commanders of Hezbollah. Before them, Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, and many others. Also, we have the martyred President Raisi of Iran. Seems like in the ladder of leadership in the Axis of Resistance, the only big name that is still there is the Ayatollah, may God protect him, and Sinwar under the ground in Gaza. Should we be expecting that they will also try to target those leaders?
Before I respond to the question, I just wanted to add that when I was saying that Beirut was the weakest link for the resistance, there are two things that may be asked. One is that why was Sayyed Hassan in Beirut if it was the weakest link? Because he is the leader of the resistance, which is not just military, it's political. He is constantly in contact with different people. So I'm sure that he has to spend time in different areas to communicate and speak with different people. He was the overall leader of the resistance. Secondly, infiltration in Beirut is much greater than anywhere else. And Hezbollah has thousands of kilometers of underground tunnels, far more sophisticated than what Hamas and Islamic Jihad have in Gaza and perhaps the West Bank, in the south and central Lebanon, maybe in the parts of the north. These are not infiltrated. And these are all of their key capabilities are very much intact. And if the Israeli regime with Western support tries to invade the country, and the West will condone it as usual, they'll support it as usual, like they did in 1982, like whenever they bombed Syria or whenever they murdered women and children in the West Bank, the West has no problem with that. But if they try to come in, they will be defeated. I have no doubt about that. And the axis of resistance will support them and have no doubt that Iran will not allow Gaza or Lebanon to fall. There's no doubt about that. But getting back to your question, while I can't make any comment about Dr. Raisi's demise, whether it was carried out by the enemy or whether it was an accident, I really don't know. But I believe that Imam Khomeini, Ayatollah Khamenei, and many, many different people from different walks of life have built a culture of resistance with so many people that are fully dedicated to the cause, that the United States, the Israeli regime, the UK, the EU, all of them combined cannot defeat them. Our movement for liberation is not founded upon any individual. It is all of us. You are a part of this resistance. I'm a part of this resistance. If right now they strike this building and kill you and me, there'll be better people, well, at least better than me, who will replace me. And there'll be people who will take your role. The West is destined to fail, and Zionism is destined to fail. And I have no doubt that no matter what atrocities they carry out, they cannot defeat us. It will be painful. It will be painful. In fact, my friend who I was speaking with in the Asaha Hotel when the attack on Sayyed Hassan and the hundreds of people in those apartment blocks took place, I was telling him, he's a pharmacist and has a shop very close to here, his pharmacy. I was telling him it's going to get a lot worse. Of course, I don't know how bad it will get, but this is the war. This is the key moment in history where the colony either wins or is defeated. This Western colony needs a victory. If they do not win, they lose. If they do not win, they lose. So they may slaughter hundreds of thousands of people. They've already done that in Gaza. We know that the direct and indirect deaths in Gaza are in the hundreds of thousands. You've seen the Lancet article, and the Lancet isn't exactly an unbiased source.
Revolutionary.
But I would say if that was then, now probably the amount of people who have been slaughtered are probably more far more than what they said, maybe 300,000. Who knows? We don't know. But this war is going to continue. It will be very painful. We will lose many friends. Who knows what the fate of, what your fate is or my fate is. But the resistance will defeat the enemy. There's no doubt about that.
Let's remind our viewers of what Sayyed Nasrallah said.
By the way, please quit smoking and
You know, I've been
to
told,
our young viewers, do not smoke.
I've been told this many times.
And by the way, to our young viewers, although he's a great member of the resistance, this is American. Don't buy anything American anymore.
Shame.
Don't buy anything European. Don't buy electrical. This is a Samsung, by the way, mine. Don't buy anything produced by the West anymore. And their electronic products are suspect now.
Yes.
Because they allow the supply chains to be infiltrated, and they do nothing about it. Yeah. There's no outrage. If we had done such an outrageous thing, they would be bombing us now. So I would advise everyone to, if you're smoking, don't use anything made by the West. And from now on, I think we should. This is what we as individuals have to do.
Yes.
We have, and as I said, as I have a Samsung, I have to,
change that.
From now on, I'm going to move away from this.
I have a Huawei telephone, and I actually...
You're compensating for the...
Yes, for the Marlboro. But this is, just also for our viewers, this is not really Marlboro. Everything that is sold here in Lebanon is,
is fake.
Fake Marlboro. So this is Lebanese Marlboro, so I'm paying to the Lebanese workers.
Don't smoke anyway.
Yes, but I just want to say two things here. One is that before I go back to my question. One is obviously the devices. You are right, and we will have to discuss that cyber terrorism attack in a minute. The other is that we've been living here in this region non-stop war, bombardment by chemical and biological warfare, bombardment by depleted uranium, non-stop war. For decades. And honestly, even if I don't smoke here, it's one in two men will get some form of cancer in our region, and that is no matter how much you try because of the pollution. Those who think about the environment and so on don't realize that the biggest polluter in the world is the imperial armies that are bombarding our countries.
Absolutely. But, humor aside, I even think our friends in the West should not purchase anything from these corporations or go to their restaurants or, any of these companies because that is an individual act of resistance. And if collectively, it has an impact.
Yeah, that was my whole thing against the BDS, was that it was only directed against the Zionist colony. It should have been and always directed against all of the Western Empire ruled from DC. To go back to our question, I was asking about...
And by the way, I didn't buy the Samsung. I had a Huawei too, but this is a gift when my Samsung broke. So I'm trying to, justify myself in front of the audience.
Yes, we're giving the audience some comedic relief from our hard times. And in Arabic we say, "Sharrul baliyati ma yudhik," meaning the worst of afflictions is what makes you laugh. We have no choice but to continue living and resisting under the weight of these crimes that are being committed.
Hazrat Zainab, the sister of Imam Hussein, after Ashura, after Imam Hussein was martyred because he refused humiliation, the grandson of the Prophet, because he was going to Kufa because people asked him to help them against the oppressor, the despot of their time. And he, of course, along with his companions, refused to submit, even though the people who invited him there they were forced to go into the army to fight him. And he refused to submit. And he said, no to submission. Later, his sister and his family were taken to Yazid's palace. And Yazid said, how do you feel now? Or what do you think? In sort of to humiliate her. And she said, I saw nothing but beauty. This is very painful. These days are very heartbreaking. Seeing people on the streets, hearing the drones, knowing that people are going to be hit and killed in the coming minutes and hours. Even sometimes you just sit and you're thinking about something else and you remember Sayyed Hassan. All these things are painful, and they distract us. They make it difficult for us to think and to move forward. But ultimately, all of this has its own beauty, in the sense that the people are resisting. Amidst all this pain and suffering, if you look at the overall picture, these people are standing up to the Israeli regime. They're standing up to the empire, an empire of lies, with their media that creates all these. This is the most hypocritical empire in human history, and thus the most evil, because they are the most powerful, but also the most hypocritical ever. But people are resisting. So while this pain and suffering hurts us, but the beauty of resistance amongst these very same people is something that I find, it's what motivates me.
Yesterday I had a moment of realizing that we will never hear him speak again.
No.
Give us clarity and strength with his words, But maybe a lot of people have lost sight of our human condition. Many prophets, wise men and women in human history have died on this path of justice. It definitely is what keeps us going in this region, our understanding of the meaning of life, that we're here to prove to our Creator that we are just with others when we were not just with our Creator in heaven. That's the only meaning of life. So what do you think this well of knowledge and love that is here in our people, what's the role of this in our struggle?
This is the heart of the struggle. This is what makes our struggle worthwhile. This is what makes living worthwhile. Otherwise, what's a value in the world that we live in if there is no struggle for good? And the struggle to help the victims and to stand up against the oppressor. Despite all odds, the worse the odds, the greater the struggle. Sayyed Hassan was the manifestation of struggle, of beauty, of love, of humanity. He always took the right side, even when it costed him greatly. He was enormously popular. But when he knew, for example, that NATO is carrying out a dirty war in Syria, And NATO and its regional allies were lying and creating false narratives about ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all these other groups as freedom fighters. And when countries of the region did a deal with the devil to help NATO, and we knew it was to cut Syria away from the resistance, to isolate the resistance in Lebanon and the West Bank and Gaza for today, when they need support from the most. But he took a stand. He said, my popularity is not important. What is important is to stop these extremists, these fanatics that are tools of NATO. Just like the Contras in Latin America or any other extreme. The West is their expertise in lying and supporting the worst of the worst.
Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah, in his last speech, I think, spoke very frankly to the people about the kind of struggle that we're in. And I think it took a year for the leadership of the Axis of Resistance to, speak in those words. It is an anti-colonial decolonization struggle, which are bloody and long. And many of the leaders of the resistance will be martyred on the way, just like in Vietnam and Algeria, when only a few of those who started that struggle were alive to see the liberation. And he said that I may not be with you, but we will see Palestine liberated. And I think those words were prophetic, obviously. He knew the price that was put on his head and what he was offered if he gives up on Palestine. So,
you know that Sayyid Hassan could have left Lebanon and it would have been completely justified to protect him from the enemy. But he knew that he was the target. So that, I think, just shows his dedication. But also, he's not alone. There are many tens of thousands of young Lebanese who are willing to give everything for their cause, for this anti-colonial cause, this war between good and evil. These are the best. When he spoke of Afdalun Nas, the best of the people. These are the best of the people. We have them in Lebanon, we have them in Yemen, we have them in Palestine, we have them in Syria and Iraq and Iran, who are all dedicating themselves to the cause. And he is absolutely correct. There will be victory, and you're absolutely correct. The price will be high, but it is the price that we have to pay. When I'm a nobody. But when they first struck southern Lebanon, the first day when they started bombing, killing 500 people, I asked to come here because I knew that during the first days, I didn't know it would be like this, but I knew that they probably needed someone. We don't have media in the resistance. We don't have very good media. We have very little. I don't mean to diminish the good work that people are doing, but compared to the enemy, we have very little. So I thought at least I'd spend a few days here and try to help amplify the voice of the resistance. But there are thousands of people who can do what I'm doing and what you're doing, and they will continue to do it. It doesn't matter if we survive the struggle, although I'm not based here, and I will be going back probably shortly if nothing happens. But the point, you will be here carrying out the struggle. But then, of course, the war may expand. The point is that we don't know where this is going to go, but we know it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful. But I have absolutely no doubt that those people who follow Sayyid Hassan are today more steadfast and more committed than they were the day before he was martyred. The chaos now will end, and people will stand their ground. And we have God. We're answerable to Him. So whether we live or die, it doesn't matter. We're responsible to Him. It doesn't matter if this is happening in Lebanon or in Gaza or anywhere else. The fight against aggression, the fight against racism, the fight against Zionism and all other such ideologies is our fight. And if we die fighting, each in our own way, if we lose our jobs, as many I'm sure have done, if we have to make sacrifices, so be it. And they will do that. Many young people will do that from all walks of life, from different countries with different religious and ethnic backgrounds. The resistance is growing. And that, I think, is the beauty of this resistance. The suffering that people are tolerating today is painful, but there's, as I said earlier, there's a beauty in this resistance that is being seen across the world. And people are joining the resistance. You know, we see people, I saw a clip from Australia where people were commemorating Sayyid Hassan. They are going to pay a price for that. The regime is going to punish these people. But the resistance is growing. People are willing to make sacrifices. The enemy will hurt us. But since we know our cause is right and God is just, and that there is no chosen people, and that no people on this planet have any exceptional rights because of their lineage or because of their race, what we do is, whatever happens to us, whether we emerge victorious and you and I meet each other a few years' time in Quds and Al-Quds, or whether we don't see, we do not witness that day, we're doing the right thing, and we will end up in the right place.
And somebody else will witness it, inshallah.
Definitely.
So, given right now that we saw the elite in the West all condoning, number one, the martyrdom, genocide, assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the beginnings of the destruction of Lebanon, the genocide in Gaza, it seems like the Western elite will go as far as they can in defense of this Zionist colony. So let's presume right now an all-out war breaks out with Lebanon. Because of the might of the resistance, clearly the Zionists will not be able to defend themselves alone, and the West intervenes directly. They are here in the sea, in the water, waiting. Their jests are over us. What will happen next? Will we see a direct war with the West?
It's very hard to say. I think this war will expand. How far will it expand? I don't know. You're absolutely correct, though. The political establishment in the West is fully behind the Israeli regime. When Justin Trudeau writes a tweet about the massacres in Beirut, all he says is Sayyid Hassan, that he was a terrorist and so on. Why? Why does he write this? Because he wants to hide the slaughter. He wants to distract people away from the slaughter. Even if we were the terrorists, and they are the terrorists, Justin Trudeau is the terrorist. He is the guy who helped support the genocide in Yemen and the genocide in Gaza, and he is supporting the Israeli regime carry out its genocidal attacks in Lebanon. He is a racist monster, and the political establishment, it doesn't matter if they're Christian Zionists or Jewish Zionists on the right, or these woke liberals on the left. They're all the
secular
same.
Zionists.
Yeah, they're all the same. Whether they can have 1,001 genders in Toronto and New York, But when it comes to our region, they're right behind the chosen people.
Yeah, well, I mean, it all started with a European
Yes.
convert to Judaism claiming that they are a Semite, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, therefore, if a European man can call himself a Semite, they can call themselves a woman if they want to, also.
Yeah, of course. So they are firmly behind this, and that will include the media. I'm not saying everyone in the media is corrupted, but that's just the media, Western media. It's a part of the political establishment. It's part of the, affiliated to the centers of power. If you don't toe the line, you're out. They'll replace you, quit immediately. Doesn't matter if it's Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or BBC or Sky News. Ultimately, they're all the same when it comes to the Global South and when it comes to Palestine. Some may be a bit more sophisticated, some may be more crude, but they're still all the same. Some people may try to, journalists or others may try to justify what they're doing by saying, well, if I weren't doing this, someone else would be doing it here. Maybe I did this small thing to, but we know what's going on. I think the war will expand. I think the Israelis will probably try to enter Lebanon. I'm sure they will be defeated. I have no doubt that Iran will firmly support the resistance. They are trying now to create divisions within the axis of resistance and say Iran is not going to do anything, Iran has betrayed the resistance. That's a part of their narrative now. And we've seen this happen in the past. But Iran will, and we know that Iran, all the sanctions against Iran, the suffering that they've imposed on the Iranian people for decades to make them kneel, it's all about Palestine. It's never been about the nuclear program or human rights or animal rights or global warming or whatever it is tomorrow they're going to use against Iran. It's all about Palestine, and it's all about the people of this region. It's because Iran is taking a principled position. And because Iran is principled, and of course the West, they're the ones who have a monopoly on principle. So they can't tolerate these brown people being far superior to them. And that's really one reason why they're so much against us, because some of these people are consciously or unconsciously so deeply racist that they can't even imagine that they are actually the morally inferior ones. It's unacceptable to them. So I can understand why they want to crush us. But Iran has been sacrificing a lot. Iran has helped. It is the reason why we have these military capabilities in Gaza that has prevented it from falling. And Iran is continuing to support Gaza, the West Bank, Yemen, which is playing a key role. All its capabilities, its underground capabilities, at least financially, I'm sure come from Iran. And even expertise, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, of course. And that will continue, but I think it will intensify. I don't want to be specific because I don't want to pretend that I'm a decision maker. I never was. I've never been in government. But I understand Iran, I think. Over the years, Westerners like to say he's a propagandist. And I always tell people that, well, maybe I'm a propagandist, but why is it that over the last 2 decades that I've been in the media, I've always been right and you've always been wrong? So
they pretend that they know the Arab and Muslim mind, when in reality we know their mind much more.
We know them much better than they know us.
Yes.
And their knowledge of us is based upon, and I don't mean all people in the West, there are lots of people who've decolonized their minds and they're growing in number. We should be optimistic on that front. But, and there are some who always were like this, but their understanding of us is warped with racism, Orientalism, which we don't need to get into now. But the point is that I think the war will expand. I don't know how far it will expand. I think the Americans are very fearful of pushing too far, because if push comes to shove, then everyone will be all in. And if that happens, all American assets in this region will be destroyed. And they can easily be destroyed. They will be overrun in Iraq and Syria by the Iraqi resistance. In the Persian Gulf, their bases will be destroyed, but far more importantly, those regimes that host them, they will be destroyed, because they will be a part of the aggression. So those gas installations, those oil installations, those tankers, they'll all be gone. There are so many underground Iranian missile and drone sites across the country with 1,000 times more than what is needed to, well, maybe tens of times more than what is needed to destroy all this.
Mighty Yemen has already hit 3 American destroyers over the last few days, and the US is admitting it for the first time. We know they've been hitting American naval ships for months now, since the beginning of this war. It is, just living in the West and looking at how the elite is willing to kill their own people to actually maintain this Zionist colony. I am of the feeling that this could go all the way. But what will happen to China and Russia if actually the US directly invades, let's say, Lebanon, or bombards Syria, or bombard Iran? Do you feel that those countries could also get involved? Could we find ourselves in a world war just to maintain the Zionist colony?
We won't need them. They will be defeated. If the oil and gas installations are destroyed, those oil and gas installations that are affiliated to the West, the global economy goes down. It's more than 1,000 atomic bombs. So they know what the ultimate price will be for them. There is a balance of terror now. They can terrorize our women and children here in Lebanon and in Gaza and slaughter, but there is a balance of terror now. The Americans can easily be overwhelmed in Iraq too. As I said, the resistance will wipe them out. So
we already saw those demonstrations yesterday.
That's just the tip of the iceberg.
And the attacks on the Conoco oil fields.
Tip of the iceberg. That's just to remind them where things stand. But more importantly, I think, is the fact that the West is rapidly on the decline. They're the ones who are destroying themselves economically. The war and the endless wars, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, now Ukraine, they are emptying their pockets, they're destroying their economy, they're emptying their military capabilities, and they've destroyed their image across the world. People see what's going on in Gaza. People see what's going on, and now with Lebanon added to Gaza, the outrage across the world is unimaginable. If you and I together, we had $1 trillion, we couldn't do the damage that they've done to themselves in the eyes of the global community, the damage that they've caused to themselves. If we had $1 trillion, we couldn't do this damage. Their image has been destroyed among their own people, but across the world. People are not stupid. People see the reality. People see who they are. And so I think that economically, militarily, and their image alongside that is going down the drain. The Western Empire is dying. They're killing themselves faster than we had expected. We always saw, we've been talking about this, many of us, for decades, about the decline of the West. They are pushing this, they're fast forwarding this decline, and it's collapsing now. So I'm optimistic. It will, as I said, it can become very bad for the world. Because if there's a global economic collapse, that means people across the world will suffer. And we don't want that. We don't want a regional war. But if they escalate, we will escalate with them. And sometimes people ask me over the last couple of days, or the last few days, why are they hitting and why are we not hitting back? From the very beginning, the objective has been to respond to escalation. We want the world to see, and our own people to see, how monstrous they are, so that when we respond, people will say, you did the right thing.
So looking at their propaganda that you mentioned, obviously they have lost the propaganda war. And in fact,
it's been a rout.
without
they've been wiped out.
yeah, with this whole media empire that they control, the Gulf media, the West media, everything.
All of them together.
And they couldn't defeat a few TikTokers and Instagram videos from that because it's truth. The truth. They were trying to convince the world to deny reality that we see in our eyes and so forth. But right now we see a huge shift in their propaganda, and I'm going to try to end this soon, like so we can all get where we need to go. But we saw a huge shift in their propaganda. In the beginning, they were trying to convince people that Palestinians are killing themselves. But now, as we see, they've abandoned the propaganda war and are only directing themselves to the most filthy core of supporters that they have. Looking at how they're tweeting joy at the death of, and they're telling openly the people, well, if you don't like that, stop fighting us. We will kill you and your family if you don't. Openly.
We're
genocide.
Amalek. Yeah, we're all Amalek. We're all inferior. We're all subhuman. Even those of us who go to the West and join them and who want to be a part of their club, they will never be a part of their club. They can dye their hair and, have nose jobs and wear colored lenses and walk and talk like them, but they'll never be them. And Zionism has been defeated. And even the most liberal and pro-Western Iranians are now having second thoughts. They're thinking more deeply about reality. The Americans have worked very hard in the Europeans, and Iran is just an example. The anti-Iranian media apparatus, the Persian media, is unbelievable. There's nothing like it in the world directed at Russia or China, because they've been doing it for years when we were the axis of evil. There was no Russia and China back then. There's far more Persian media beaming into the country against Iran than there is inside Iran. Day and night telling people how miserable you are, and Iran is the worst country in the world, and how impoverished you are, and how evil the regime is, and how corrupt it is. And lots of young people believe them. The riots a couple of years ago in Iran was not about a headscarf or anything like that. It was because, first, they lied about this young woman, Mahsa Amini, being beaten to death and tortured. All this media said that, and a lot of young people were convinced that it was true. And there was never any footage of it, and the autopsy didn't show it. But by then, there were riots, and these young people it was not about her. They thought, the West is good and liberal, and we're the troublemakers. Now, some of my own students who are part of these riots and protests have spoken to me and said, these people are crazy. They are evil. They are slaughtering these people in Gaza. The West has not just strengthened the resistance. They've not just destroyed their image in the eyes of those in the gray area. They've destroyed themselves in the eyes of those who believed in them, who were misled to believing in them. And now only those core evil people, for the most part, are left, who are racists, who are Zionists, who are racial supremacists, who view us as Amalek. And when I was on Sky News yesterday, and the lady was saying, when I was talking about genocide and how Western media is siding with the genocide, she's saying, there are lawyers who are discussing this. Really? Really? There are lawyers who are discussing this? These people know what's happening. They know what they're doing. And only people like themselves, who either want to fool themselves or who are with them, continue to believe in them. But everyone else has moved on. People are waking up. This genocide, I think, has changed the world. And the assault on Lebanon, and the assault on Lebanon has, by the way, has strengthened Hezbollah. Those who thought Hezbollah was wrong in Syria. Now they understand. Those who are clear-sighted and honest, they know that what Syria was about now. No one defends the Sunnis like Hezbollah. Hezbollah joined this war voluntarily. They're even more heroic than Ansarullah. Not that they're better, but this is even more heroic, this act, than because Ansarullah has been paying a price, but Hezbollah is right on the border of this evil regime. They've been giving martyrs, and those who are saying, "Oh, this is just token," because they're bad faith actors and some naive people. Well, if it was just token, why this devastation now? Why this slaughter now? Why these acts of revenge now? Hezbollah has grown in the eyes of the world, and not just the people of our region. People from all across the world contact me in different ways or forms. Some think I'm, I don't know, important or something, and I'm not. I'm just a teacher. I just came here just like you. If you were in Iran or somewhere else, you would have come here like me because you thought you could help. So we're all in this together, but people from across the world look at Hezbollah in a different light now. They look at Iran in a different light. Ansarullah, you know that during the genocide, the Western-backed genocide on Yemen, how in our part of the world people were not supporting Ansarullah. I don't want to go into detail. You know it and I know it. Look at Ansarullah today.
They are the symbol of the wretched of the earth.
Exactly.
That are rising against the biggest empire. Our martyrs are lighting the way.
So what I'm saying is that the path ahead is clear. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. You and I, others, many of us may not see it. This building is a potential target. You know as well as I do that it's a potential target. But we have to do what we have to do. And if we go, and the people in this building go, do you think anything is going to change? No, because the people are awake. It will be bloody. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I don't think anything is going to happen, and I think that I will probably return to Iran in the coming days or weeks. And hopefully, inshallah, you and our dear friends here, you'll all see far better days, you and your families. But the point is that you and I we speak in English, but people across this country and beyond, there are so many who are willing to make this stand and who will be, and even if they fail, and they will not, it's like Karbala, it's like Imam Hussein. You do what is right, and that is all that is important. Once Imam Khomeini said that it doesn't matter if we win or lose. If they destroy us, it doesn't matter. We do what is right. We do what is right, and we support the disenfranchised. Of course, some may say, these people, they think their countries or their movements are utopian. No, Hezbollah has people from all walks of life, people who are very good, people who are ordinary. Iran has its own problems. It's no utopia. But the overall, when we look at everything together, Hezbollah, the broader resistance in Lebanon, its supporters, across Syria, Iraq, across the region, and across the world, this resistance, they are right, they are good, and those supporting the Zionist regime, they are wrong, and they are either evil or they are supporting evil in their ignorance.
They say in English, you can't block the sun with your hand. And definitely our martyrs have been burning light upon this earth that is awakening the masses and have definitely guided us up until now. Inshallah, we will meet again, Dr. Marandi, in a liberated Palestine. Inshallah, we will all survive it. Inshallah, all our people will be safe. Until we meet next time in Wartime Cafe, hopefully, inshallah, in Jerusalem. I bid you all a free Palestine.
إن مع العسر يسرا.
إن مع العسر يسرا.